Blueblood, 1995 to 1996. Before he was the game, before he was the king of kings. Triple H was a blue blood snob from Greenwich, Connecticut. Hunter Hearst Helmsley. He walked to the ring in ruffled shirts and velvet coats, chin tilted high, sneering at the crowd like they were peasants beneath him. He gave aristocratic curtsies after matches, swung his nose in the air, and delivered promos about proper breeding and refined taste. It was a gimmick straight out of Vince McMahon's cartoon era. A rich snob who looked like he belonged at a polo match, not a wrestling ring. Fans booed him, but not because they hated him as a heel. They booed because it was boring, forgettable, generic. But behind the gimmick was Paul Levesque, a man who had studied wrestling history, who was obsessed with climbing the ladder, who saw every match as a stepping stone. And here's where it gets interesting. In 1996, Triple H was part of the Clique, a backstage brotherhood with Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and Sean Waltman. They were powerful, too powerful, and one night they changed everything. The infamous curtain call at Madison Square Garden in their final show together before Nash and Hall left for WCW, the Clique broke character. Faces and heels hugged in the ring, raising their arms together. It was real, too real. And Vince McMahon was furious. Somebody had to be punished. Shawn Michaels was the champ. Nash and Hall were gone. That left Hunter Hearst Helmsley. The punishment was brutal. Instead of winning the King of the Ring in 1996, a tournament that ended up making Stone Cold Steve Austin a star, Triple H was humiliated for months, squash matches, jobbing, buried. Most wrestlers would have crumbled, but not him. Triple H gritted his teeth, played the snob role to perfection, and waited. Every bow, every curtsy, every eye roll hid the ambition burning underneath. And slowly, the tide began to turn. By late 96, fans started noticing something. The Blue Blood might have been a goofy gimmick, but the man behind it could wrestle. Smooth, technical, methodical. He looked like somebody who belonged at the top. The Blue Blood era didn't make Triple H a star, but it did something even more important. It gave him scars. It gave him hunger. It made him prove, night after night, that he could take the punishment, play the role, and survive long enough to fight another day. Hunter Hearst Helmsley started as a joke, but behind the bow and curtsy was a man who would one day run the business. The Blue Blood was just a mask. Triple H, the King of Kings, was already waiting underneath. Degenerate, 1997 to 1999. Triple H's punishment years were over. By 1997, he was ready to break out, and he did it by embracing chaos. D-Generation X. With Shawn Michaels at his side and Chyna as the silent enforcer, Triple H became one of the architects of the Attitude Era. Together, they threw every rulebook out the window. And the highlights? They're legendary. The crotch chop. The two words that defined teenage rebellion in the late 90s. Suck it. Every kid in every schoolyard was doing it, and every parent hated it, which, of course, made it even more popular. The wild backstage segments. DX storming production trucks, cracking jokes live on Raw, mocking their opponents with skits that blurred the line between parody and disrespect. And then there was the DX invasion of WCW. Triple H, Road Dogg, Billy Gunn, X-Pac, and Chyna literally rolled up to WCW Monday Nitro in a tank. They banged on the doors. They demanded to be let in. It was one of the boldest, funniest, and most talked about stunts in wrestling history. This was where Triple H went from a mid-card aristocrat to a rebellious icon. When Shawn Michaels stepped away with a back injury in 1998, Triple H didn't just step up, he took over. He led DX into its second incarnation with the New Age Outlaws and X-Pac at his side. They feuded with the nation, with the corporation, with anybody who dared to cross them. DX was anti-authority, anti-PG, and pure electricity every Monday night. Fans loved them, parents hated them, and Triple H was right in the middle of it, smirking, crotch-chopping, and proving he wasn't just Hunter Hearst Helmsley anymore. The Degenerate era didn't just make him popular, it made him a cultural icon. DX was everywhere. T-shirts, catchphrases, pop culture references. If you were a wrestling fan in the late 90s, you either wanted to be DX or you wanted to fight them. And at the center of it all was Triple H finally showing the charisma, leadership, and confidence that would carry him to the top of WWE. From bowing as a blue blood to telling the world to suck it. This wasn't just evolution. This was a revolution. Assassin. 1999 to 2001. The jokes were gone. The aristocrat was buried. The rebel leader had grown up. Now, Triple H called himself The Game, and he meant it. In 1999, he stepped into a new identity, the cerebral assassin. Not a clown, not a sidekick, but a cold, calculating villain who could pick apart anyone, mentally and physically. And the fans saw it in the violence. His war with mankind produced matches that redefined brutality. At Royal Rumble 2000, their street fight inside Madison Square Garden turned into a massacre. Thumbtacks, barbed wire, steel chairs. Triple H walked out covered in blood, battered and barely standing, but still the champion. It was the night fans finally respected him as a legitimate top guy. His clashes with The Rock pushed both men into superstardom. From ladder matches in their early days to headlining WrestleMania, H feuded with Stone Cold at a time when Austin was untouchable. Their 2001 Three Stages of Hell match became an instant classic. A street fight, a cage match, and then finally a brutal finish that left fans stunned. Triple H wasn't the biggest, the strongest, or the fastest, but he was smarter. He was patient. He picked his spots, dissected his opponents, and found ways to win when others couldn't. That's why Cerebral Assassin fit so perfectly. He wasn't just playing the game, he was controlling it. By 2000, Triple H had reached the mountaintop. Multiple WWF championships, main events stacked with legends, matches that left fans shaken and opponents broken. The era of the game had arrived, and Triple H had proven beyond doubt that he wasn't just along for the ride, he was driving it. 4. Helmsley, 2000 to 2001. By the year 2000, Triple H had something no other wrestler had: power in the ring and power behind the scenes. The story started with a sledgehammer, a wedding, and Vince McMahon's daughter. Stephanie McMahon was supposed to marry Test in a storyline. Instead, Triple H crashed the angle, revealing that he had drugged her, driven to a Las Vegas chapel, and married her himself. Fans were stunned. Vince McMahon was furious. And overnight, Triple H went from champion to the most hated man in wrestling. But then something unexpected happened. Stephanie turned heel. She sided with Triple H, and together they became the McMahon-Helmsley regime, the ultimate power couple. Week after week, they dominated Raw. They abused their authority, stacked the odds against babyfaces, and made life hell for The Rock, Mick Foley, and anybody who dared to challenge them. Fans despised them, and that's exactly what made it work. Some of the era's highlights are unforgettable. Cactus Jack versus Triple H inside Hell in a Cell at No Way Out 2000. A match so violent it felt like the end of Mick Foley's career. Triple H pedigreed Cactus through the cell roof onto the ring, then pinned him in one of the most iconic finishes of the Attitude Era. Triple H versus The Rock at Backlash 2000, where Austin returned to even the odds. The crowd erupted as Rock finally toppled Triple H, ending one of the most hated reigns in history. The smug promos, the constant interference from Stephanie, the way they used DX as muscle, it all made fans want to pay to see Triple H get beat down. The McMahon-Helmsley era solidified Triple H as more than just a top guy. He was the guy, the villain who ran the show, the foil to The Rock's heroics, and the backbone of WWF storytelling in 2000. Triple H wasn't hiding behind gimmicks anymore. He was Hunter Hearst Helmsley in name only. In spirit, he had become something far greater. The man fans loved to hate. Evolution, 2003 to 2005. After years of brutality and power plays, Triple H created something bigger than himself. Evolution. Ric Flair, Randy Orton, Batista, and Triple H at the top, holding the World Heavyweight Championship like it was glued to his waist. The group wasn't just a faction, it was a statement. They were the modern-day Four Horsemen, designed to control Raw, elevate new stars, and keep Triple H's grip on power unbreakable. And for years, it worked. Triple H held the World Heavyweight title for most of 2003 and 2004. His reign was so long, so dominant, that fans nicknamed it the Reign of Terror. Every challenger, Booker T, Goldberg, Kevin Nash, Rob Van Dam, was lined up and knocked down. Some matches were classics, others controversial, but the message was clear. If you wanted the top spot, you had to go through him. Randy Orton's rise and fall. At SummerSlam 2004, Orton shocked the world by becoming the youngest World Heavyweight Champion. For a moment, he looked like Evolution's future, but weeks later, Triple H turned on him. Thumbs down in the air, Batista and Flair beating Orton down while HHH smiled. It was betrayal, pure and simple. Batista's slow burn. Fans watched for over a year as Batista grew tired of playing Triple H's bodyguard. The tension built week after week until finally, Batista signed the contract to face HHH at WrestleMania 21, powerbombing him through the table to one of the loudest pops of the decade. Evolution wasn't just a faction, it was Triple H's masterclass in control. Inside the ring, backstage, and in the hearts of the fans. Some hated the Reign of Terror. They wanted new champions, new faces, but Triple H kept the spotlight locked on himself. Others respected it because every villain needs heat and nobody played the part better. When fans talk about Evolution today, they don't just remember the dominance, they remember the betrayals, the slow burn storylines, the way Triple H made Randy Orton and Batista into stars by first crushing them, then forcing them to break free. Evolution was dominance, Evolution was betrayal, Evolution was legacy, and Triple H stood at the center of it all. Animal, 2005. Evolution had ruled Raw for years, but no kingdom lasts forever, and Triple H's downfall came from the inside. For months, Batista had been the muscle, the silent enforcer, the animal who destroyed anyone Triple H pointed at. But something was changing. Batista wasn't just muscle anymore, he was becoming a star, and the fans saw it before Triple H did. The slow burn was brilliant. Week after week, Batista teased breaking free. He stared at Triple H a little longer. He soaked up louder cheers, and then came the moment every fan remembers. The contract signing. Batista stood in the middle of the ring with two choices. He could challenge JBL for the WWE title on SmackDown, or challenge Triple H for the world title on Raw. Triple H and Ric Flair smiled, convinced Batista would stay loyal. Then Batista looked at Triple H. Thumbs up. The smile on HHH's face grew wider. And then, thumbs down. The arena exploded. Batista powerbombed Triple H through the table, and in that instant, the animal was unleashed. WrestleMania 21 was the payoff. Triple H versus Batista in the main event. The student against the master. The animal against the game. And when Batista hit the Batista bomb and pinned Triple H clean, a new star was born. But Triple H didn't stop there. He gave Batista not one, not two, but 3 consecutive pay-per-view victories, including another war inside Hell in a Cell. Each time, Batista came out stronger. Each time, Triple H made him look like the future. Fans didn't just love Batista's rise, they respected Triple H for making it happen. Because behind the sledgehammer and the ego, he understood the truth. For wrestling to survive, the next generation has to win. The Batista storyline remains one of WWE's greatest betrayals, greatest payoffs, and greatest star-making arcs. And at the center of it was Triple H, playing his part to perfection. Endgame, 2011 to 2013. By 2011, Triple H wasn't the young assassin anymore. He wasn't the rebel, the champion, or even the authority figure yet. He was a veteran staring at the end of his era, and across from him stood the only man who defined it more than he did, The Undertaker. WrestleMania 27, Undertaker, Triple H. No titles, no politics, just pride. The two legends waged war, tearing apart tables, steel chairs, and each other. Triple H did the unthinkable. He pedigreed the dead man onto steel and smashed him with a sledgehammer. But even after all that, Undertaker refused to stay down. Triple H finally tapped to Hell's Gate, leaving the streak intact. But the Undertaker broken. For the first time ever, Taker couldn't walk out of WrestleMania on his own. The rematch came 1 year later at WrestleMania 28, Hell in a Cell, with Shawn Michaels as the referee. 3 icons, 1 story. The build-up alone was electric. Shawn torn between loyalty to his best friend and respect for his greatest rival. Triple H vowing to finish what Shawn couldn't. Undertaker demanding vengeance for the previous year. When the cell lowered, it wasn't just a match, it was closure. Fans remember the moments like snapshots. Shawn nearly costing Taker the match with sweet chin music into a pedigree, only for Taker to kick out. Triple H raising the sledgehammer, Undertaker whispering, "End it." The final tombstone as the streak survived one more time. When it was over, all 3 men, Undertaker, Triple H, and Shawn, stood together at the top of the ramp, arms around each other, heads bowed, the camera pulled back, and fans realized they weren't just watching the end of a match, they were watching the end of an era. The story didn't stop there. In 2013, Undertaker and Triple H shared one last symbolic moment of respect, cementing their rivalry as one of the greatest in wrestling history. Endgame wasn't about championships or reigns, it was about legacy, about friendship, about the final chapter of the Attitude Era being written in blood, steel, and respect. And for many fans, it remains the greatest story WWE ever told. 8. Authority, 2013 to 2022. By 2013, Triple H had done it all. Championships, factions, wars with icons. But his final transformation wasn't about wrestling boots or sledgehammers, it was about control. The authority was born. With Stephanie McMahon at his side, Triple H became the corporate villain of a new generation. No longer the rebel telling fans to suck it. Now, he was the boss telling fans who the face of the company should be, and the fans hated him for it, which meant it worked perfectly. The highlights still spark debate today. Daniel Bryan's rise. Triple H stood in Bryan's way every step of the way, mocking him, calling him a B-plus player, stacking the odds against him. But at WrestleMania 30, Bryan beat Triple H in the opener and then defeated Batista and Randy Orton in the main event to win the title. The image of Bryan holding both belts high, while Triple H fumed in the background, became one of the most beloved endings in WrestleMania history. Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins. Triple H played the final boss of the Shield generation. From Rollins' betrayal orchestrated under his watch to Triple H putting over Reigns on the grandest stage, he gave the torch to the next era of stars, even if fans booed, cheered, or argued every step of the way. Sting's WWE debut. At WrestleMania 31, Triple H faced the icon fans thought they'd never see in WWE. The entrance, the DX vs NWO showdown, the handshake, it was nostalgia overload, and HHH stood at the center of it all. And beyond the storylines, Triple H quietly built something even more lasting. NXT. What began as WWE's developmental brand became the home of the best wrestling on the planet. Under his vision, NXT gave fans stars like Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch, Kevin Owens, Sasha Banks, Finn Balor, and so many more. By the late 2000s, fans saw Triple H in two worlds. On screen, he was still the authority, the smug boss, the villain in the suit, the man who screwed heroes out of glory. But off-screen, he was the architect of WWE's future, a kingmaker building the next generation. And then, in 2022, it ended. Triple H announced his retirement due to serious heart issues. His in-ring career was over, the game was finished, but the legacy, untouchable. From Blueblood to Degenerate, Assassin to Helmsley, Evolution to Animal, Endgame to Authority, Triple H lived every face of a villain, a champion, a kingmaker. Fans loved him, fans hated him, but nobody ignored him. The curtain closed, but the echoes of his reign remain. Because in the end, Triple H wasn't just part of the game. He became it.